Morning, everybody. Peter Ciccone, Entrepreneurs Across America. Another episode of Diner Discussions. Got a great guest today. Great topic. Ben Indiviglia from Douglas Elliman. We're going to be talking about commercial real estate. Ben was kind enough to join us today, and well, let's hop right into it. Good morning, Ben. Welcome to Diner Discussions.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Commercial real estate. You said everything but residential.
Correct.
So that just runs the gamut. Tell me.
Office, industrial, automotive, medical. Medical's a big topic these days.
Medical is a big topic. So
Everywhere you turn, there's a new hospital chain or medical chain that's opening, developing, and expanding.
okay. So now, what has changed in the last 5 years? What changes do you expect to see in 5 years? Can you go that far out, or is it really year to year?
A little bit. Since the 08-09 crisis, there has been a shift towards real estate as an inflation hedge and a hedge against away from the stock market. And
It's also an income producer.
it is, but I think more people lean towards real estate after the 08-09 crisis.
Okay.
And there's been more property available for lease, less available for sale.
Okay. So
Because-
lease is a fancy word for rent.
Correct.
Okay.
So, if you're out there looking to purchase a property, it may be a little bit harder to find something
Okay.
today versus 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and going forward, it seems to be a continuing trend where big money and investors are continuing to purchase real estate and more available for lease, less available for sale.
Okay. I heard from years ago, not even that long ago, maybe 5, 6 years ago, if you wanted a 3,000 square foot warehouse on Long Island, you just couldn't get it. They just were not available at 3 to 5,000 foot. They're just all taken up.
That's still it's still a challenge in that size and scope.
What is available as a warehouse?
Well, there's been a lot of new construction that's been built over the past couple of years, and there's still new construction coming to market now. So it's
Commercial?
commercial, yeah,
Okay.
big warehouses out further out east.
Okay.
Hauppauge, Bohemia, Landia, Yaphank, Calverton.
Okay.
Big, even around here though, there's some a couple 100,000 square feet in Westbury and Hicksville and Bethpage. You're seeing them.
And you're on top of the whole island? Do you go into the boroughs at all, or into Westchester?
I have
Okay.
gone into to Brooklyn and Queens. Try to keep it close to home because
Okay, sure.
getting in the car and going to Brooklyn could be a half day excursion. So
Sure. It's only 50 miles, but
Yeah.
but it can take a while. Yeah, I know the feeling. So, where do you see the industry going as a whole? Is it new construction really, or
Well,
renovation a big part of it
around
too?
here, there's little land to build on.
Okay.
So industrial land has been gobbled up the past couple of years, and you're seeing the repurposing of buildings. Sometimes they'll just knock it down and build new because it's easier than trying to
Reconfigure.
retrofit and reconfigure an older building.
Okay.
But the infrastructure across America is old, and
Okay.
everywhere it needs to be updated and upgraded and retrofit, and some of the uses from 50, 60, 70 years ago don't really apply as much today, and the needs are different. So your last mile logistics has been a big play, especially
What was
here.
that?
Last mile logistics. which
Last
is-
mile logistics. So
Yep.
that's
So getting product to the consumer's home in a short period of time. So having the inventory nearby,
okay.
and that's why they've been building the warehouse so much. I think there's going to be an oversupply, and I think industrial will peak out in '24. It's already starting to happen a little bit.
An oversupply of industrial space.
Yes, big warehouse basically.
Big warehouse space, 10,000, 20,000 square feet, things of that
Even
nature.
more, I mean.
Even more, 100,000,
Yeah.
okay. Let me ask you a question. Office space,
Mm-hmm.
how is that during the pandemic? We've heard all stories. Do they have people working from home, change the whole dynamic? Where are we with the office space market? Is it better in the outer boroughs and on Long Island than, say, in Manhattan?
Yeah.
What's changed?
I think that's pretty safe to say. That There's literally millions of square feet office space available in Manhattan right now.
Okay.
And then all the big metropolitan areas from, Chicago, San Francisco, even further down south. There's not as much of a problem here on the island because a lot of people came east,
Okay.
but there's still an oversupply.
Okay.
And there's a lot of Class B office space out there.
Okay.
And more people are flocking to Class A. So it's going to take time for it to all.
Class B is just an older,
Class A is all your amenities, top of the line,
Okay.
high class. It's where your Morgan Stanley, your Wells Fargo, your
Douglas Elliman.
your Douglas. No, but bigger law firms,
Okay.
well-named law firms are all in Class A buildings.
Class A buildings.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of the Class B spaces, I know in Manhattan at one point, they repurposed those to apartments. If you have a floor with, they used to have several offices in it, and you make it 3 or 4 palatial apartments. It becomes you can make it a luxury apartment too, and
It's a little misunderstood. There's a certain wingspan that
Okay.
you have to have in order to do an office to residential conversion. If the wingspan is too big, it becomes ineffective and unaffordable to make that conversion because you can't bring plumbing to the extremities of the building.
Okay.
It just costs too much. So it has to fit a certain mold, and then there has to be a certain amount of vacancy,
Okay.
and then the cost has to be,
Have to make
the
sense.
number has to be there in order for the investment to be made and for it to be profitable. So small percentage that can actually be done.
I knew a guy who he did it about 10 or 15 times, maybe once or twice a year. He'd find in the city 2 single 1-bedroom apartments that were next to each other, both for sale. So you have to pick your spots. He'd knock down a wall, and he would convert 2 1-bedroom apartments into 1 3-bedroom apartment,
Right.
and was able to make a good margin. Now, because he was a single operator, if he made $500,000 profit or $300,000 profit, and he made that for the year, he did that several times, and did very well for himself. And it wasn't a kind of had a niche sort of business for himself not a lot of people converting apartments like that, but he did it 1 or 2 times. He made high profit and kept them going for years. And now he's living in Taiwan, Thailand actually now.
Most of the big office buildings, the core has your elevators,
Yeah.
your bathrooms, your plumbing, everything's
There.
geared towards the center.
So-
in order to bring it out, it
Yeah.
becomes cost prohibitive.
Okay, so,
So it
you
has
were
to
in
be
the
the right
mailroom.
size.
There was a mailroom somewhere, and you don't want that apartment because you got to run. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, you have to do it for the whole building too.
Yeah, okay.
It gets expensive.
And
Sometimes it's better to just knock it down and start fresh.
just take the
At
spot.
the right price. Right.
Okay, and that's okay. So that's what you see going on. What do you see in 2024? What's on the short horizon for commercial real estate?
Well, there's 2 things come into play. It's already started. You've seen in the office market where big name landlords and owners are handing back keys to lenders because the math doesn't work on the refinance or when the note comes due. And we've been seeing that in the office space. Now it's going into multifamily,
Okay.
and eventually it'll get into industrial and
So-
retail, and so it's going to have an impact.
So you're saying they can't afford the financing?
Yeah, most commercial financing is short term, about
Okay.
5 years. So if we're in 2024, if somebody purchased a building or refinanced the building in 2019, they have a note coming due, and they have to refinance it. They can go to any lender, but the rates are all pretty much the same.
Okay.
So if you're going from a 3% rate to a 6% rate or a 4% rate to an 8% rate, there's a sticker shock there.
There is.
And
It's
you
a
have
lot.
to, if you can't digest it, you have to come up with alternative solutions.
Okay, so that's interesting point. So unlike the residential market where you get a 30-year mortgage,
Right.
you're saying you can only get in a 5-year,
Most,
5-year loan
right?
that most guys, they don't pay the whole thing back in 5 years, so they refinance, and they're
Correct.
just in the process of always refinancing.
Yes.
Now, when rates come down, that's great. Your 6% loan goes to 3%. That's okay, and you don't change your rent.
Right.
But when it goes in the opposite direction and your 4% goes to 8%, what are the current rates?
You're probably in 7s, 8s, 9s. It depends on, yeah. They're
And
up
you
there.
were at in 2019.
Yeah, we're at
You
three, four,
4.
five.
Yeah, wow, the guys are getting killed.
Well, that's why I think you're gonna see it in the multifamily now, because there were a lot of multifamily transactions about 5 years ago where investors were, the rent growth was so great,
Now, multifamily, I don't mean to cut you off, but
100 unit, 200 unit.
100, okay, that's commercial, okay, right,
Yeah.
versus a 4-family building or something like that.
I mean, the rates are still
No, I know, but is that
double what they
commercial,
were.
or do you consider that residential?
5+.
5+ is commercial, okay,
Yep.
okay, that's, okay. So you get I never knew that about commercial, it's a 5-year mortgage or loan.
Yep. Many of them, not all of them. If you get SBA loans and some
Okay.
other, non-traditional loans, you can get longer terms. But the bulk, I would say, are 5-year notes.
5-year notes,
Mhm.
wow, okay. And on a, $60 million building, 3%, it's a lot.
It's a lot of math. People people used to do cash out refinances, take money out, invest in other properties, and now they're doing cash in refinances, where in order for them to refinance, they have to lower the loan amount.
So they're
because
putting money
they're
in,
putting money in,
okay, and they're buying
then-
equity in the building.
buying equity in the building.
Oh, man, so,
And that's without the increased insurance costs that everybody's facing. So that just makes the math even more difficult.
okay, so, and it's just a simple math. When the price of the building goes up, the insurance amount, you have to raise the insurance to cover the new price of the building. So,
Yeah. I mean,
maybe on
insurance
your
companies
asset
have
sheet,
been-
it looks good, your $4 million building is now worth, say, $5 million, or let's use bigger numbers.
They're worth less.
Yeah,
They're
they're
worth less.
they're
But
worth
just the
less.
cost of insurance has just gone up. The
Okay.
labor's gone up, materials have gone up, inflation as a whole the past few years.
It's killing it.
So if you need to, replace something from some incident, the
Okay,
cost is gonna be probably, 20% higher, but yet the rates are going up even more than that.
now let me ask you, does this, what you're saying, it hurts the big guys,
That's everybody.
it hurts
That's
everybody.
everybody.
Okay, because say a building like this,
Mhm.
that we're in, a standalone restaurant,
Right.
is this kind of safer where if he bought this 10, 15 years ago,
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be, most diners that go out of business are either,
they're poorly run food establishments.
right, well, it's a generational thing too. I
Yeah.
mean, my wife's Greek, I'm familiar with,
Yeah.
a lot of diner owners and stuff like that, and, they want their kids to become attorneys and doctors
Yeah.
and dentists, and it's hard to, to transition to business. So you've seen a lot of diners close in the past few years.
I've seen
A
them,
lot of them become medical, or they become franchise type
but what I've
restaurants.
seen is kind of like with the family farm. What I've seen over the years is they own the building,
Right.
and this was going to, let's just go back to the early 2000s, or into the 90s. You sell this building for $8 million to a guy who wanted to put condominiums, hey, that's better than working. You're not gonna make that kind of money in a restaurant in 1 year.
Listen, you
You
can
know.
always rent them out.
And then, yeah, so that's where I saw a lot of places, that's where I saw that industry going. The land had become so valuable.
Or it becomes medical, and it turns into
Or a
an
bank.
MRI facility.
It becomes a bank. I knew one guy, the landlord was offered a huge amount of money from a bank. And what the owner of the restaurant, who'd been there for years, he had the right of first refusal.
Right.
But he didn't have $4 million back in 1995
Right.
to pay for the building,
Yeah.
like what you said. So he lost the restaurant, and made a deal with the landlord, who just wanted to get him out, but had a tenant for 25, 30 years,
Yeah.
and but wanted the $4 million that the bank offered him.
Sure.
And the bank, and it was a corner spot, so it fit their criteria of what they looked for. And it's so interesting. I find it, and I never realized how different it was from residential real estate, where you just have completely different parameters to work with.
And now you're seeing the reverse of the banks expanding. Now the banks are contracting, and they're putting their properties, which a lot of banks were leased, and they're now becoming for sale or for lease again, but it's becoming medical.
They're letting the property go to become medical, which will overshoot itself too. I mean, how many medical facilities does any one town need? And that's
So here's an interesting stat, and it sounds pretty accurate. Long Island, 23% of Long Island is 55 and older.
okay.
So that population has more medical needs, and that's why, and it's going to stay. That population's it's a big chunk, and their continued medical needs.
55 and older, and I don't mean to be dire and grim here. But some of that dies off.
Yes.
Okay, and when you get to our generation, which is, we're not baby boomers, we're just after them, we're fewer people than the baby boomer generation right in front of us. We're just fewer. So as they, die off, again, I don't mean to be dire, but just doing math here, the replacement is going to be, it's like when they built schools in the 50s and 60s. By the time our generation came into it, there were a lot of schools, there were a lot of places that,
Right.
they weren't as filled up in the 70s as they were in the 60s, because everything that was built for the boomers,
Right.
the generations after them were fewer. And this one professor said to me, the baby boomers, they were the python, they were the pig in the python. You saw wherever they were going, because the generations before them were less. So that's going to happen with medical too.
It will. It's years though before I think it actually shows up.
Okay.
Yeah, because the population is so big. Even if 10%, passed on, and there's still 90%. It's still a big.
It's still
knee
there's still the python.
replacements,
There's
hip
still the pig in the python.
replacements,
It's
stents and strokes and Alzheimer's, and the medical need is big,
okay.
and it's growing. We need to build. We actually need to build more senior living, senior condos, assisted livings, and you're seeing them pop up everywhere. I believe the East Islip Lanes bowling alley was just recently approved for an assisted living to build there, and it's just a trend. We're
Are they going to
servicing
keep
that
any of the
population.
bowling alleys?
There will be less.
Okay.
There will be less. There's another big one that's for sale right now. I can see the same thing happening there.
Or are they going to convert it to I remember years ago, somebody was in commercial real estate, and in my hometown where I grew up, Glen Cove, there were at the time 3 or 4 nursing homes, and a friend in commercial real estate wanted to convert a school to a nursing home. And the mayor at the time said, "I already have 3 or 4. Why do I need I have 3. Why do I need a 4th one?" And it was a good answer. I just remember them telling me the story that the mayor, who he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to be. He thought the town was going to be saturated with the facility it didn't need.
Right.
And part of me thinks I would let the developers worry about that.
Yeah. I mean, they seem to be pretty occupied.
I think they
the
do.
occupancy rate is pretty high.
What kind of demographic studies go into it before somebody purchases?
Oh, they do their homework.
Okay.
When they're spending millions and millions of dollars, they do their homework.
Okay.
A lot of it's just statistics, and there will be developers that overshoot.
Okay.
Like I mentioned, the industrial, how much has been built,
Okay.
and when they look at the income and the population here on Long Island, if they haven't done business here before, they may see those statistics and think they're better than they actually are because of the density. And I think they'll be overbuilding in industrial, and I think it's already starting to happen.
Okay. I knew one guy in the restaurant business. He Checkers. You see some of the places.
Yeah.
He had his logic was simple. He wanted to be within a half a mile of a McDonald's on the same side of the road.
Okay.
And he figured they did their research, so he was
Right,
a
right.
half a mile in either direction on the same side of the road.
Yep.
You know, if he just did a third of what they did, he would be
would be
fine.
good.
He didn't need McDonald's numbers.
Right.
He needed his numbers. But he that's how he looked for it, and they're all drive-throughs. I don't see too many of them anymore. You know, there's a thing. You know, somebody one time told me, a restaurant friend, they had a Hale and Hardee's, and they had like 7 or 8 locations in the city, and they would look to bring on one a year, maybe 2, because they knew how much work went into building a restaurant. And one of his big competitors talked about bringing on another 20, 25 stores in the next year. He said, oh, this music to my ears, because he's going to be out of business. Because he's going to go to, he said, you can't do 20 stores well, and you won't do any of them well if you're trying to do 20.
Right.
And too much will fall through the cracks, you'll make too many mistakes. And he started eyeing the locations, and he knew that guy within 2 years was out of business because of how fast they went to grow. And that's, you know, I've always found the differences between commercial and residential stark.
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of food, service, and medical along Main Street, and
Okay.
that's what's going to continue to service the population.
Do you specialize in any of those as a,
No. I actually pride myself in being diverse. And
okay,
to me, it's just math and
Okay.
marketing. Math and marketing, you know, usually gets the job done.
sure,
But yeah, I've worked on medical. I've worked on automotive, industrial,
Okay.
office space. It's all the same to me.
you can do this, speak the language to whomever you're speaking to. How
For
much
the
square
most
feet do you
part.
need, and you know, what are you
For the
willing to
most
pay per
part.
square foot,
Yeah.
and
It's how you position it, how you market it too.
okay. So I guess within, what do people have to worry about now? So it's financing for 2024?
Financing and insurance for 2024. Yeah,
Financing and insurance.
both costs have gone up, probably greater than the regular the rest of inflation. I mean, we're sitting in a diner. Food inflation has been
Killing them.
up top as well. It's
Yeah.
one of the highest. So
What's your advice to somebody who is thinking about commercial real estate or hears it sounds sexy, sounds like a real sexy business?
Mm-hmm.
If somebody wanted to get into that industry, what advice would you give them?
I would say to do your homework, align yourself with the right people, tap into your network and your circle, where you have relationships already. It's not as glamorous as people think.
No, I know.
It's a lot of hard work, and a lot of discipline. So
What is the discipline?
the discipline is being out there, being active, doing what we do here,
Okay.
and just shaking hands and talking to people and building relationships with
Okay.
accountants, advisors, attorneys, centers of influence that talk to
So
the
find
property
people-
owners and business
you
owners.
Speak to property owners. So when you're looking to talk to somebody, what's a home run for you type of person? Oh, that's somebody I need to do business with. Is it a banker, is it a CPA, the attorney?
Yeah, the accountant, the attorney, the advisor, those are generally good. Bankers right now because, again, those people that are having a hard time refinancing their loan, they may have to sell the property. They may have to do a leaseback, which is where you basically sell it to an investor, but you stay put and you just continue to pay.
I'm paying somebody else now. So they come to you first and they're like, Ben, I have a problem. I can't afford the building now. Can you sell it? Can you find me financing?
Sure.
Can you this? Okay, so you
In
need to
commercial
be.
real estate, when you help people solve their problems, you get the business.
That's it. Then we ask everybody the same question: do you love what you do?
I do. It's like I said, the different asset classes. You learn something new every day.
Every day.
You're in a different place, a different location, different people. I enjoy having the conversations and breaking it down, getting to the root of the matter. So.
Yeah, and understanding it. Thank you for coming.
My
I've
pleasure.
enjoyed this a lot,
Thank you for
learned a
having me.
lot, and guys, thank you. Like, subscribe, and please comment. Okay, Ben Indiviglia. How do people get in touch with you, Ben?
Cell phone, best way.
Okay,
516-353-6549.
one more time.
516-353-6549.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Ben Indiviglia, Douglas Elliman.